Hello and welcome to episode 19 of MMO Weekly, presented as always by MetsmerizedOnline.com. I'm your host, Sal Manzo, along with my co-host and MMO executive editor, Mike Mayer. And we're joined today by a special guest, former New York Met, Ty Kelly. Ty, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely. No, this is great. And, as the blurb here says, we are with the last New York Met to get a hit in the postseason. So this is pretty big stuff here. We love that. Obviously, we're going to get to the current Mets and hopefully, talk their playoff chances in 2022. But first and foremost, we obviously kind of want to talk to you a little bit about, your time with the Mets, the playoff game you were able to play in, as we mentioned before. So we kind of want to just, start with that as far as, just your time with the Mets and, your highlights of your time there.
Yeah. That was definitely, besides all the firsts that I got, just being the first time I ever got called up, the playoff game was unbelievable. It was against the Giants, which I grew up in Northern California. So, all my friends were sort of rooting for and against me at the same time, which was a really cool, but, weird thing. But of course, pure luck that I got a hit, first of all, and, and that it just happened to be the last hit for this long is crazy. Obviously, we're not going to get to I'm not going to get to keep celebrating it forever, but you guys can finally cheer on some new guys to get some hits and hopefully advance beyond the wild card, or hopefully start beyond the wild card.
Absolutely. And can you tell us a little bit about that 2016 team playing with guys like Curtis Granderson, Yoenis Cespedes, Noah Syndergaard? What was that team like for a role player like you?
It felt really big. I think I'm not the biggest person to start with, being, listed, I would say exactly 6 feet tall, exactly how tall I am. Some might not agree, but, we just had Cespedes is just 2 to 3 times my width, and would hit with a bat weight on and would hit balls 500 feet in batting practice, and just kind of larger than life. And all the guys with their hair at that time, with Noah and Jake, it was just it was very surreal to sort of be part of that and to be in New York, which obviously, again, just everything is just so grand. And it was a very fun experience, but also just kind of day to day, just trying to make it through, just hope to stay on the team. And of course, getting to the playoffs, we barely got there, even though it was a good season with 90 or close to 90 wins or whatever it was. So just very cool to be a part of that with a lot of kind of veteran guys, mixed with some younger pitching, and obviously what would become just such dominant pitching. There's so much stuff going on with those teams, with Bartolo and Harvey, and I don't know, you can go down the list. It feels like everybody's got some kind of story. TJ Rivera getting called up and getting to be, the hometown kid for a year and a half or however long until he started getting injured. There's so much to that team specifically. All of this stuff that has blown up since then, all the ass in the jackpot stuff, everything just is on such a different scale in New York, and playing for the Mets and having all that talent and everything, that, I was just trying, like I said, I was just trying to make it to the next day basically, and had no expectations of even being on the playoff roster at all. Of course, it's just a wild card game, so I ended up getting the chance to be there, not needing starting pitcher beyond that day. So all just felt like it sort of was, I'm just falling up the entire season and just trying to do whatever I could to, not get released at some point.
No, definitely. And I can't imagine how, exciting it is to, get your first time in the majors right in, a playoff push like that. You mentioned the ass in the jackpot thing, which made me think of, obviously, Terry Collins in that video kind of made it obviously with his rant. Was that Terry in a nutshell as far as that fire, that, passion for you guys, for the game? Is that kind of how, was that surprising to see, or was that like, kind of par for the course with how Terry was, with his guys?
I mean, I definitely could see it. Like you can, like it's obviously in there. But I think that being just in New York, like there's so much pressure on everything. I've said this before, but I think that had we been in a different city, I think Eric Campbell, I think Soup would have started at first base that game over James Loney. Not to say that it would have worked out or not, but he would have started a righty against Bumgarner. But he didn't want, again, just my opinion, I don't think he wanted to hear it from the New York media. Basically, if Soup goes up there and goes 0 for 4, and everyone wonders why we don't start the veteran Loney at first base. So I think that like everything in New York is just different. Right. You're sort of always have that in the back of your mind that I can't imagine coaching there, being a manager. Like everything that you do is so scrutinized, and every decision, just everything, how you handle yourself, and so I think it just makes it very difficult to just always be yourself. There, of course, like Buck, I think can probably only be himself, and that kind of I think is a reason why he has had success there and is continuing to have success in New York, because he's going to do what he's going to do, and if people are going to second guess him, then I don't think he is going to care too much. So I think that's sort of the personality you have to have if you want to have success in New York, player or coach.
Absolutely. And you got a chance to play in the organization, the Baltimore Orioles organization, while Buck was there. Can you tell us a little bit about time that you may have spent with him? I know you're in the minor leagues, but I'm sure you got to see him in spring training a little bit.
Yeah, so the 2013 season in spring training a little bit. I was only in on the major league side for one game, but we would go over to I think it's still split minor league and big leagues with the Orioles in Sarasota. It's two different facilities, so we would get like bussed over from the minor league facility if we were going to the major league side for the day, to just stand in on bullpens or to get work with the big league team, whatever it was. So I got to interact with him just a little bit. He seemed very intense, and just like I think we briefly met, and I think he knew who I was because I was coming off the best year of my career at 3 levels, and I don't think I got minor league player of the year, but I would have if I was a prospect, I guess, to just to just stay a little bit bitter, I guess, and petty. Like I had a way better year than the guy that won it, but that's not the question that you guys asked me. But but so I think he knew who I was, and it was just kind of probably a little bit of like, I'll say hi to you, but like you're still going to have to earn a more of a conversation than that. So but I've like I said, I feel like that's a really good personality to have when everybody respects you and knows that you're coming from a good place, that you're just going to be steady and expect everybody to work hard. Like there are certain expectations, you want to live up to those expectations, for kind of a like business first manager, I guess. Like just come to the yard every day, play hard, and and then we'll go from there.
No, definitely. And kind of with what you're talking about, right? You talked about how, you might have missed out on minor league player of the year. You had your best year of your career there. When you got called up in the Mets, you had a 391 batting average and a 478 on base in the minors. Like, that's tearing it up. So I guess my kind of question to you is, as you said, you weren't quote unquote a prospect. Like, how difficult is it for someone like yourself? Like, you're tearing up in the minor leagues, you're producing, you're doing as well as you can, but because you don't have that like quote unquote prospect tag on you, how much like harder does it make to kind of continue to get to the next levels, or like, is it extra motivation, and then you really just got to hit your way out of it? I'm just kind of curious, that kind of road.
Yeah, I mean, again, like just ask TJ Rivera. Like he hit like 330 every year, and had to work past his free agent sign.
Right.
Like he was a much better hitter than almost everyone in the organization at that point. But he like really had to hit his way there, and he also like had to hit his way beyond me being able to like walk my way there, essentially.
Right.
Obviously, like you said, I had a high batting average at that point, but I think the big factor that got me called up first over him is the fact that I could walk, and is, the Moneyball days sort of, I guess like one step back in analytics from where we are at this point, or right, however many steps it is at this point. But, like, I think that was a huge reason why I got called up. And it was one of the things that I did well that first season. I walked more than I struck out, in a, small sample, but yeah, I mean, like, it was hard for me, but it like even harder for someone like that. And it's something else that I talk about, Bobby Dickerson, who was with the Orioles, was the infield coordinator at the time. I think he's still coaching third in San Diego. But one of the things that he told me in, I think the year before that I kind of went off and put myself on the map, in 2012, was that if you want to get called up, you have to beat the league. So it's not enough to just be a good player on your team to be hitting 290 when the next guy's at 270 or whatever. Like, you need to be better than the entire league. And it took me leading the league and hitting at the time to get called up. But it's like that sort of mindset that, if you truly want to get called up just to the next level, to like, you have to truly force the organization's hand. And, right, and that was kind of, what it was like for me every step of the way. And the same thing for TJ and for other guys like that aren't, top couple rounders that they feel especially invested in.
So for the record, LJ Hose got the minor league player of the year that year. He had a 760 OPS, and you had a 892 OPS to back you up there. I mean, that's quite a difference.
Yeah,
it is. And I don't know if you had told me what my OPS was at that point. I am not sure I would have known what you were talking about, because it was just like that. I'm truly, I don't know how many steps beyond. There's no analytics at all. That was pure, everybody's going off gut at that point. So, but yeah, it does feel good to hear that again.
And we're only talking about 10 years ago too. Right. So it's crazy to see just how much the game has evolved in only 10 years.
Yeah, not even close. Truly just the dark ages at that point. Like, nobody knew anything somehow about baseball. Nobody wanted to change anything. It was just purely what's worked in the past, and we're just going to try and do that as much as we can, just at like every phase of the game. But I will say also the big thing with Buck at that time too is that he's just like constantly trying to take whatever situations happen in the game or might happen in the game and just figure out a drill to test the team, basically, to the point where he gets made fun of a little bit for like, a ball hit off the pitcher's foot one time. And then, the next day Buck's going to have a drill where they're hitting ball like fungos off the pitcher's foot to try and get ricochets and stuff like that. But, at least he was, trying to think outside the box in some way when nobody else was.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I remember hearing a broadcast from like 2011 or 2012, and Vin Scully explaining what WHIP was to his audience, explaining this new stat and things like that. It is wild over just the last decade. But I guess that kind of brings me to my next point, and not so much like analytically inclined or anything. And I just am kind of curious what the organization was like, the Met organization was like, kind of like under the old regime, playing in the organization. I'm not asking to bash or anything like that. Just kind of curious, because now we've talked to some folks with the new regime here, and it kind of like to, hear, obviously like what things were like under the old one. You played for, under the old, ownership. So I'm just kind of curious there, like if there's, if it was a good environment, like, a successful environment. I just wanted to get your thoughts there.
Well, I've played in like 8 organizations or something like that.
Right.
I don't know if it's 8 or 9. I actually don't know if it's 8 or 9. But I think that a lot of organizations in the past were very similar. Okay. Everybody, no matter where you are, except for like 3 organizations, thinks that their organization is bad. Right. Mostly because it's guys in the minors that aren't in the big leagues and think that they should be at the next level. But also, everything up until very recently was, if you're in the minors, if you don't like it, play better. So I think that just like almost every organization up until like the Dodgers started changing things. I've always heard good stuff about the Giants and about the Yankees, throughout the last decade that I played. But besides that, it was really a lot of complaining about every organization. So I think that it was just very similar to every other organization. Like there aren't things that stand out from my time with the Mets that stand out, that that separate them from another one, positive or negative. I will say that in my time in the big leagues, the Mets plane and travel situation was better than when I was with the Phillies, which is, not insignificant. Yep. It's something. So, I mean, I think it means that they either they have more money or well, at this point, that's not in question. But at the time, right. That they either had more money or were willing to spend more, at least on the big leaguers. So I think it was very similar. I'll also say that my time this year with the Dodgers, there is just no other organization that's like it, I think. Yeah. And from a pure success on the field standpoint, I don't know how anybody's going to compete with them for the next, until other organizations figure out what they're doing. It's just it's truly so much different than any other system I've been in, just in terms of communication. You always know exactly where you're at, what could happen. You're just sort of always prepared for everything. And it's also a good enough organization that they can have one person for one specific thing. And it's just so exactly what you're going to do all the time. You're always going to be in a position to succeed on the field, and they're going to try and take care of you the best they can off the field. So it's quite a system and a strategy, and eventually other organizations are going to figure it out. But it's hard to talk about all of the organizations without mentioning how good they are, right? Just at every phase, and so I think that all the other organizations are starting to go down that road, especially with the unionization and all that kind of stuff. So it's again kind of forced their hand in all of that and in making everything better.
I think that was a great segue. So, Mike, why don't you get to that one? I think that was a really nice open there.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of started this year with obviously the lockout, and obviously there's a lot of things that went into that. But as me and Sal were always talking about, all the conversations about the lockout and what the players should get, and what the owner should be conceding to the players, is the fact that we never really got to talk about the minor leaguers in any of those conversations, and it always felt weird to us that the minor leaguers weren't covered in the union. And I honestly didn't see this coming. I just didn't see this happening as quickly as it has been put together. And I'm really glad that it's happened. I know Sal and I have been, mentioning it a lot on the show. And just from a standpoint, I mean, you've grinded in the minor leagues a lot. And first off, I'd just kind of like to hear it from you, just what it means to you that this is going to happen, that the minor league players are going to be part of the union.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible, but also very surprising to me. Before last year, I remember people asking like when I thought the guys would get housing, and I was like, oh, hopefully like in a couple years, they'll come around on it, and it was like, boom, they're getting housing next year. And then earlier this year, if you would have asked me when guys are going to get unionized, I would have been like, hopefully like 5 years from now we can just start to like keep getting everyone together and hopefully on the same page. And then boom, like it's just happening like all at once. Like it's truly crazy. Started like from the very beginning of Advocates for Minor Leaguers, just like the pandemic essentially like sprung us into action. Like we had a small plan of we're going to educate the public on what's going on in the minors, etc. And we've got a 10-year plan, and it's hopefully we're going to be able to get people on our side by then. And then immediately all the stuff with the stipends at the beginning of the pandemic, and different organizations doing it differently and not paying guys and releasing guys, and being able to stick up for players like that. Really like got the ball rolling, and being able to start to talk to guys in every organization, not necessarily me personally, but we hired a great director that was just like in every clubhouse, like knows guys in every clubhouse, just right away, just developing a network to have people communicating and getting the word out. And a big part of it is kind of alleviating the like the stress of possibly being released because you say the word union or talk about how conditions are not good, like in some way. Like the bar is so low for everything because everybody is afraid of losing their job. So
Right.
to be able to go from like very humble beginnings where we're just trying to figure it out, the few members that we have are putting up all of this stuff on social media and trying to produce everything ourselves and do it all, with like just on the side, basically, to having like an entire organization that's in communication with minor leaguers everywhere, and to just like all the things that we were able to accomplish. I certainly did the stuff at the beginning and then was just kind of a name towards the end that, I'm in the organization and supporting everyone. But I was not nearly as involved as everyone that made it all happen, really. And being able to like get the players union on our side and to be able to try and like present a plan of how this could all work, and for them to to be able to do it and to also have the support of the major leaguers, because I think again for a long time guys felt a little like that if you don't like it, play better was like, well, that applied to us and we did make it, so why should other guys not have to go through that? And so it's cool that that all of those guys were on board with it and were willing to bring in the current minor leaguers that may not make it, but it also could be their future teammates, to get them on board and to improve conditions, and we'll see all the things that happen, but just the fact that they have a seat at the bargaining table now is huge and so exciting to have been part of that in some way.
No, it's awesome, and like Mike kind of said, we've touched on a lot, and just never made sense. The minor leagues is the lifeblood of Major League Baseball's sport. That's where the youth, that's where the future comes from. You want to be able to take care of them a bit, and we've talked about how you guys grind, you work full time plus the hours that you put in, and more than full time. So you should be compensated to make a living wage off that. So thankfully, it's obviously like you said, it's all steps in the right direction. Things still have to happen, but it's great that they have a seat at the table. And credit to you. You're a humble guy, but it's folks like you being able to take this off the ground and, wanting to help the guys next, the next generation, so to speak. So, for folks like you to be able to, put their name out there and do that, that's awesome. I think it's only going to be great for baseball. They'll have the big pizza box bases next year too. We have all that fun stuff coming. That's a different talk, I guess. But no, it's great stuff. Where Mike and I are thrilled about it. I think we're all just as shocked that it happened so quickly, but glad that it did. And I think from there, obviously we can go from the minor league guys to the big league folks. Talking about the Mets here a little bit. They lost today to the Brewers. They took 2 out of 3 though. Great win the night before with Alonso and Lindor heating up. Great win the night before as well. 2 nights before that with Scherzer. So just want to talk, 2022 Mets. I don't know how much you've watched or involved or anything like that, but just kind of your expectations, thoughts. It's I think everyone, even if you don't watch much, it's a good team, and I think it have a real chance here in October.
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely paid attention. I follow enough people on Twitter to know what's happening.
It might be
with
good
the
or
Mets.
bad, depending on
It's
what
always
day
it always seems to be bad, but somehow the fact that Mets Twitter has hope even after losses this year, I think says a lot. In previous years, kind of just like watching their success and failure through Twitter, it just always seems like everybody is just down and like there's just no way this isn't the team. And this year, it seems like throughout the entire season, people have kind of been on board and have felt like they're a good team, and they've got like 95 wins. So I think they're proving that over and over again. And obviously they've had tons of injuries and like huge pitching injuries. So the fact that they've done that without like a full season of DeGrom and Scherzer and
Right.
And Carrasco and like everybody that's missed time, like those are very significant losses throughout the course of a season, when supposedly the thing is your team is not great at hitting or like not powerful or whatever the people like the negative comments are about them. So to be able to scratch and claw for wins throughout a season is really important. And when you have DeGrom and Scherzer in the playoffs, like to be able to make the bullpen really short and to just like get through innings as quick as you can, hope to get a run or two here and there, and then just force the other team to play from behind against those pitchers. Like, I think that's a really good recipe for success. Obviously, they still have to score runs. So I think that's sort of what it comes down to. Like, I think the pitching in the playoffs, like, it just is so hard to hit. The weather's going to get cold.
Right.
Like the intensity is so high that DeGrom, it's going to look like he's throwing 110. Like, with those things, I think fairly like consistent. Like it just seems like that's how the playoffs go. Like, you're just going to have to score runs. So it seems like, they've figured out how to do that all year. And I think that, like, that's if you like I said, I'm from Northern California, so if you think back to like the Giants teams that won 10, 12 and 14,
Yep.
they were not good hitting teams,
Right.
Like, they had very good pitching and they like truly scratched and clawed for runs. And I don't think that the Mets are in that boat exactly, that they're going to have to rely on trying to get like one run a game through like a push bunt or something like that. But that's definitely a recipe in the playoffs to be able to win. And yeah, I mean, I think I think for them it would be very big to kind of finish this season, not have to play in the wild card series, and just sort of get beyond that and get a chance at a full series right out of the gate and force the Braves obviously to not be like in their comfort zone in clinching first place. It feels like a pretty significant deal to I don't know, just in my opinion. Obviously they can come back from whatever over a few games, but I think it's a pretty big head start for whoever wins the division.
Absolutely. Win the division. We agree. Although I do have a quick comment. You're with the Dodgers organization. Could you have told them, like, maybe the Mets are good this year? Can you have an off year? Maybe you don't have to win 100 games. It's every year. Now the Mets are finally good. The National League is stacked. Now I'm busting chops. It's great for the sport, but it's like you look at the American League and then the National League, and it's like, oh man, if the Mets were in the American League, they'd be like the second best team besides the Astros there. But you have so many teams in the National League. It's fun though. It should make for a fun race. But I agree. Please win the division if you can. Mike, I think you agree too. We've talked about it.
Yeah, and I want to put a tie on the spot. Mets first, Dodgers 7-game series. Who you taking?
Uh-oh.
Well, the Dodgers. I mean, have you guys watched them? They can put any lineup out on the field, and like they are just gonna win. Obviously, like they played that crazy series last year against the Giants, and then of course against the Braves, they're burnt out, but they're just so good. They have, like I said, they have someone for every situation. Like they know how to plug and place guys to come up in big spots and situations where they're going to be comfortable. They have Joey Gallo just kind of sitting there, just waiting for an opportunity to come in and hit a pinch hit home run at some point in the playoffs. And they're truly so good. And being in the organization and seeing it firsthand, just really, it's something different. And I don't know, other teams trying to compete with them year to year just seems futile. And like they develop, they have prospects, they'll pay for guys.
Right.
They could easily bring up guys in the minors that would succeed, but they can just sign Freddie Freeman if they want. And they've got prospects to trade. It's just an embarrassment of riches in the Dodgers organization. And they could definitely lose the series, but there's no way that I could bet against them.
That's all right. We'll just edit that.
Yeah, we're gonna dub that. We'll
get rid of that.
Poor internet connection. Don't worry. We'll fix that. It's okay.
We don't want Ty to get killed on Twitter for that, but it's all right.
No,
So I think on that point, I mean, you've talked a lot about how the Dodgers, the organization, is running stuff, and I think a big thing with the Mets now is having a new owner in Steve Cohen, and kind of. Obviously, they're not at the Dodgers' point yet. It'll take a while to overhaul an organization and get it to where it needs to be. But I think you can already see signs. And there was an article in the Sports Illustrated this week talking about how the Mets are spending money on the little things. Their analytics department is the second biggest in baseball behind the Dodgers now. They're overhauling player development. I think I know Cohen said it. He wanted to be the Dodgers. And I think they're finally shrinking that gap a little bit with Cohen and being able to spend the money on the little things and just trying to make sure that they're doing everything right from the top to bottom.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think the biggest difference has to be in development. I don't know all the guys in the Mets organization that are, the coaching and like the relationship between the coaches in the analytics department and the trainers and like everything that goes into it. I know, again, to talk about the Dodgers, like, since that is like the bar to compare to, the conversation between each department is so thorough that it's like, okay, this guy has these deficiencies in his mobility or whatever. So we're going to take that to the training side and get them to help him with his mobility in these areas. And we're going to take that to the hitting coaches and say that these are the deficiencies. What can we do to work around this while they continue to work on their mobility in these areas? And then like they can take whatever type of swing guys have and whatever their bodies do and be able to say, this is the type of pitching that he's going to hit. These are the situations that he's going to play in.
Wow.
So like when you're going like step by step to back to the player and being able to relate it to the player and so like these are the things that you need to work on. This is why we're still going to put you in situations where you can succeed, but like this is how you're going to be able to take yourself from where you are right now to get the most possible, the best possible version of you at the big league level, and you're going to contribute, when you're called upon. So like that is the gold standard right now. So I would love to see, how the Mets are operating in from like each different department. Like it is difficult to have that, to be that thorough and to be that open from the analytics department to all of the other areas, because they're, you're coming from different worlds essentially. Right. So to be able to bring it back to the player and to get them to understand it and be able to improve, that, I would love to just see what it's like over there, and to see the kind of development that's going on. But I don't know if you guys have any more info on that of like who they're I don't know a lot of their coaches. I'm not sure.
Well, it's funny from what you're saying as far as, the communication aspect is what's so important. And that seems like to be at least was the takeaway for me there, as far as, communicating from every level and then down to the player and being be able to digest it. And from the folks we've talked to, Mike, can you correct me if I'm wrong? A lot of what they said, the success that's come, besides the resources of Cohen, obviously, which we know is immense and all that, but they've talked about communication within the organization, communication between their departments to their players. So, it's nice to hear you say that, because then it seems to be echoing as far as the things that the Dodgers do that succeed. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be still the overwhelming kind of, theme, as far as there's the communication has gone up. It's been a complete 180 in the organization over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think it kind of got really kicked off more so this year when Brian Hayes, who we had on the show, became the director of baseball development. And that's kind of his role, is to make sure that, because they also this year started having an analytics person with every affiliate, so that he can work with the players hand in hand. And that was kind of Hayes's role, is to make sure that, hey, we have the analytics department, we have those guys there now. And like Ty's talking about, is to get that information from the analytics department, get it to the players, get it to the trainers, get it to the coaches, and kind of have that guy that's leading them there and making sure that everyone's communicating and getting it to all the players, coaches, up to the major league staff, so they know who they want to call up. And I think, again, we're talking really the first year of Cohen really having his stamp on this and making those changes, because they weren't able to hire all the guys that they wanted to the first year. It was kind of a short hiring season and weren't really able to change kind of the development aspect yet. So with Brian Hayes leading that role now and them getting more analytics guys in there, I think this year is when we finally started to hear about the development being a plus side for the Mets, because it has been a struggle for the last, you can talk about even when Ty was in the minor leagues and more recently when there was a lot of turnover. It's just, you heard it from players, agents, they didn't know who they were supposed to talk to if there was an issue. And how are players supposed to get better in that type of environment? And I think this year has really been a turnaround for the Mets.
Yeah, that's good to hear from me, because obviously the Mets have like a special place in my heart of being there for 3 spring trainings in a row. I'm just kind of watching from like afar at this point, just kind of hoping that that they are doing like all the things that they're talking about, obviously, and like I've said about the Dodgers, like they'll spend money and develop. So obviously the Mets are able to spend the money at this point, when they can start bringing guys up and immediately placing them into lineups. I haven't followed Beatty a ton after his start this year, but it seems like the Dodgers just always have prospects ready to go. So when the Mets are able to just have prospects that are ready to come up and contribute, that feels like that's sort of the completion of the whole game plan, being able to have both sides to be able to use the entire system and the entire major league roster of players sort of at their disposal to go out and contribute and get wins, and ultimately they have as good a chance as any this year to win a World Series. So it's good to hear all that stuff and to kind of see it all coming together.
No, definitely. And before we get to, I want to ask you obviously about the WBC and playing in the Olympics, but you put out a video a couple of years ago, Unwritten Rules, Baseball Gods. It was hilarious. I'm curious, is there a future for you as maybe a TikTok creator? We get something going, get you on the socials, some more skits, because that was hilarious. So I just wanted a little bit get the how did that come about? Did somebody come to you to do that? Like, was that your idea? Because that was hilarious. So I would be remiss if we didn't have you on the show not to bring that up, because I've always laughed at that.
Well, I appreciate it. Anytime you do some accent work and put it out, it's always a big risk. So my old roommate, Matt Perret, and I, former minor leaguer himself, also heavily involved in advocates for minor leaguers. We made some YouTube videos back in the day. We're kind of just trying to see what our path was going to be beyond baseball. Matt has continued in the entertainment industry with the Spring Hill company, with LeBron's company.
Wow.
So he's kind of continued down that path more than I have. He's I think somewhat famous on TikTok. Wow. I don't know if famous is the right word, but he's got 100. I don't know how many followers he has.
Wow.
But a lot, some number of the 100,000 or hundreds. I'm not sure. I don't want to sell him short, but I don't know if it's I don't know if that's where I'm gonna go. I tried this off season to do some hitting stuff on TikTok.
Nice.
But it's just people are putting out just content constantly, and I don't know if that's for me to be able to just have something ready to go every hour. But I did enjoy. I enjoyed the acting stuff. First of all, it's always fun to do that kind of stuff. And it's possible that Matt and I will get together for, I don't know, a podcast or something. Nice. Through his company at some point.
Awesome.
We've always talked about that, but, yes, I may get back into the hitting stuff at some point. Just because that seems to be where, the road that I'm headed down is towards hitting coaching stuff. And
nice.
So yes, I think that's kind of fun, and hopefully share some wisdom and help some future big leaguers out.
Love it. And obviously, to kind of put a bow on that, you're also an international player. Like I kind of teased before, you played for Team Israel in the WBC in 2017. And then again, actually you got your Israeli citizenship to play in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. First, I just want to talk to you about the WBC, what that experience was like. Obviously, it's coming back this spring. It was the last time it played was 2017. Obviously, with COVID and everything, it delayed it a couple more years. But I just want to talk about that environment, and then also just your experience playing in Tokyo. Obviously, fans and all that, for that Olympics. So I just want to hear kind of about both situations.
Yeah, first WBC. Coming off of my first year in the big leagues with the Mets, so left straight from spring training out to Korea, and was just a crazy experience. Just getting to go play over there, thrown into the atmosphere and into games in general, coming from spring training where you're playing 4 innings and right. Nothing matters too much. You just kind of get work in. So straight into big game scenarios and The crowd was awesome in Korea, and getting to play the first game of the tournament, South Korea, was just awesome. And then end up winning that one, winning that group, and then going to Tokyo for the first time for the second round, and like again, like a even bigger stadium, even louder and more fans. So it was just such a cool experience to get to play in front of those crowds and in those atmospheres, and to just see what baseball is like in other parts of the world, and to see, what every country takes from other countries into new versions of baseball. And I think that all that stuff is so interesting. So getting to see all of that and playing against other countries from around the world, and a lot of familiar faces at the same time, with all of the big leaguers that the Netherlands team has, all the guys from Curacao. So all that stuff was so fun. And then so I retired in 2019 at the end of the season, went straight out to Israel to get my citizenship, and then straight from there to Germany to the qualifiers.
Wow.
We qualify from the Germany round, went straight over to Italy, where we had to win it to qualify for the Olympics. We end up winning it. Nobody expected us to, including us for the most part. I had just retired, so I thought that I was like, this will be a fun last thing, and end up qualifying for the Olympics. And then 2020 happens, and then 2021 got to come back and get back into affiliated ball, and straight out to the Olympics from there, and then playing in front of no fans this time. Such a weird experience. Just very strange to be playing in obviously very big games, but just dead quiet, and sort of all the adrenaline, everything has to come from you. There's nobody there to pump you up and to remind you that you're playing in the Olympics. So just a very strange experience, but again, very cool to see all of the athletes from around the world, this time from every different sport, random sports, such unique sports. And then of course, the basketball players that you recognize from the NBA, seeing Luka Doncic and Yao Ming is there, I think coaching the Chinese women's team, but just people from all over the world that you recognize, and then also that you don't recognize, that you're still oh, this is one of the top 10 people at this sport in the world. So that was such a cool experience in its own right. And then getting to winning a game there was awesome, even though we got walked off twice, and we're very close to being able to play in the bronze medal game, which of course we got walked off by Jose Batista, and the Dominican team ends up getting bronze. So we're again a very narrow miss, but a great experience. And then leading into this next World Baseball Classic, which I will be playing in. So I'll be spending this off season basically training for one tournament, and then hitting the hitting coach road after that. So it'll be another interesting off season, where I'm gonna put everything I can into it, obviously, because I haven't really stopped playing at any point except for 2020 for the most part. So so it's not totally foreign to me, but I'm looking forward to kind of having that one last go at it. Unless it's somehow, I keep saying that I'm done. I'm going to be a hitting coach next year, unless I hit 5 home runs in the tournament, then somebody's going to sign me, and I'm just going to quit whatever hitting coach job I am signed up for. But we'll see what happens. That's kind of my pie in the sky goal, I guess, is my pipe dream of hitting 5 home runs off the Dominican, Venezuela, and Puerto Rican pitching, and then getting sent straight back to the big leagues, obviously.
Well, when you hit 6 and that happens, we're going to say you did it here first. You shouted it out here. So that's perfect. And before we, obviously close things up, Mike, real quick, I think we had some championships or maybe one in the Mets minor leagues. Wanted to have you tell us about that real quick before we close things out. I believe the St. Lucie Mets did a little something.
The St. Lucie Mets won the Florida State League. They played the way it's set up. They only needed to play 4 playoff games. They swept both series. The 2 big guys from the pitching side was Blake Tidwell, who was a second rounder this year. 2 scoreless starts for them. And then the first round catcher, Kevin Parada, hit over 400 in the 4 games. So, yeah, shout out to those guys. That's pretty much the end of the season for the Mets minor leagues. They just have Syracuse left, and those guys are kind of they extended their season just to kind of keep them playing in case I know you got teams playoffs run, stuff like that. Well, and I did have one last question for Ty. So you got one Mets teammate to hang out with. Who are you picking?
Let's see. From my time there, not from this current team.
Yeah, from your time.
Well, I always hung out with TJ. Obviously, I just continue to talk about him. So I think that if I said anyone else at this point, it would be obviously a lie. But TJ was always like, we were, like I described earlier, like we were in the same boat. We were both trying to get our first call up as guys that were, never considered prospects. I know it was hard for him to see me get called up first and kind of not know if he's going to ever get his chance. But of course he gets to and kind of breaks out in spurts over his time there. But I always hung out with him and his wife and daughter. Obviously they've got a couple kids now. It's not obvious, I guess, to other people that don't know him. But so like it was very cool to kind of have that kind of friend there and be able to to hang out with the family and watch at this point on Instagram the kids grow up and I believe he's back coaching now too somewhere. I don't know if he I feel like it may be the Phillies, but I'm not sure. But it's cool to see other guys, good guys, like return to organizations and try and develop the next generation, like the St. Lucie Mets, and kind of brings it all together. The development, obviously, they've got their top couple of rounders there playing well. I feel like at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for, is that those guys that you're sinking time and money into, that they're improving and it's always fun to watch guys like go up from level to level together. So hopefully these guys will be up in the next level next year and the next level. And then everybody's coming up to the big leagues at about the same time and kind of have that energy of like, we've been doing it our whole careers together. Now we're going to take it to the big leagues and sort of, play off of each other in the way that you always have. I feel like that's like the ultimate goal of developing in organizations.
Absolutely. And hearing that, you think I think of the core of the '86 Mets. That's how it was. They all came up together, all won the minor leagues together. So hopefully that'll be the same result for this group in the future. But Ty, we don't want to keep you all night. We really appreciate you taking time. Everybody, look out for Ty in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. Team Israel. He's going to hit 6 home runs. He said he's going to dedicate it to Mike and I. If you didn't hear it, he also picked the Mets to win the Dodgers, beat the Dodgers a 7-game series. There might have been technical difficulties, but no. But seriously, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. And, enjoy the offseason here and getting ready for the tournament. But, as far as everything with the Mets goes, guys, we'll be back next week with everything for the latest, fighting for the division. And until then, let's go Mets.